Hi everyone. So this question is question 2 from the 2006 Leaving Cert higher level paper for accounting, and it's the farm account question. So I'm going to continue today with part B of that question, which is the enterprise analysis question. It is a 20 marker, and we've already gone through this for the statement of capital, and we have said that it's a cattle and milk and sheep farm. So we need to do two separate accounts for this question in relation to the enterprise analysis account. We also said the enterprise analysis account is an income and expenditure account relating to a specific activity. Okay, so I'll just scroll down here and I'll show you the layout for the enterprise analysis account. The one here that I'll show you first of all relates to cattle and milk. So what we do first of all is we have the income, we have the sale of milk, which is a working, which I'll go through with you. We have cattle and calves. There's an EU subsidy for cattle, the value of stock, and drawings. Okay, now what I mean by the value of stock here is, I'll just put an increase as well because it's income, relates to the actual value of the cattle. So if you have a look in the question, it tells you the value of the cattle at the beginning of the year, and it tells you the value of the cattle at the end of the year. So in this question, the value of the cattle was 60,000 at the beginning, the 1st of the 1st, and at the 31st of the 12th, the value of cattle was 62,000. Therefore, there was an increase of €2,000. Okay, that also needs to be reflected here. We have drawings then which the family used, which is income here for 700. Also in relation to the expenditure account, there were purchases of cattle, payment of dairy wages, general farm expenses, vet fees and fertiliser. In this particular question, it specifies that cattle and milk are 60% of farm expenses need to be attributed to them, 60% for vet fees and 60% for fertiliser. Okay, so I'm just going to go through the first working there in relation to the milk. So if we go back up to the question, okay, it tells us here in the lodgement side that milk is €28,000. Perfect, great. But don't forget, at the very top of the question, on the 1st of the 1st, it mentions a milk check due 2,400. So it's specifically relating to milk. So that needs to be considered here. Also, on the 31st of the 12th, sorry, I'll just scroll down here. It also mentions another check. So it tells us that there's a milk check due for 1,800. That also needs to be considered here for the milk. So in order to do this working, we need to first of all go through our rules again. So when we're doing questions, there are rules here in relation to due and prepaid and stock and debtors and creditors. So the fact that we have a check due on the 1st of the 1st, we subtract it based on the rules. Okay, very important that you know that. At the very end of the year, there's also a check due, so we add it. So for this working, it tells us milk is 28,000. We subtract the milk check at the beginning of the year, because it's due, and then we add the check at the end of the year. It is also due, and our overall value then for milk is 27,400. Okay. So there's also other workings in relation to the enterprise analysis account. We have general farm expenses. It tells us in the question that it's €15,000, but 60% is attributed to cattle and milk, and then 40% is attributed to sheep. So straightforward enough working, you just get your 60% for cattle and you get your 40% for sheep. Okay? For the next working for vet fees, be careful with this one. Tells us in the question that vet fees are €1,750. Okay, but if you have another look at the question, it also mentions in the details here, vet fees and medicines include a check for family health insurance for €650. Okay, so we don't actually need to include that for the calculation here. So what we do with that check is we subtract it from the vet fees, because the reason is it doesn't relate to cattle and milk, and it doesn't relate to sheep either. So for that one, you subtract your check for 650, you get your overall value then of 1,100. So this is the figure that we use to calculate the 60% for cattle and the 40% for sheep. Okay. The next working then is working 6 for the fertilizer. This one, it tells us in the question, is €3,000. Now, have a look at the notes as well in relation to the fertilizer and see if it mentions anything else there. So, where is it there now? Oh yeah, so it says creditors for fertilizers amounted to €400. So this is at the 31st of the 12th. So we've creditors for fertilizer for 400. So again, go back to your rules here and have a look and see what it actually tells you to do when you have creditors or debtors at the end of the year. You add, okay? You add. So what we need to do for this working is we need to add €400 to the 3,000 and we get 3,400. This is the figure that we use to calculate 60% for cattle, and the 40% then goes to sheep. Okay, so that's the workings done for the enterprise analysis account. You pop them all in, enterprise or income and expenditure. And then the sheep is very similar to the cattle one, except there's different items go in. Well, you have a sheep and lamb, I suppose. You have the EU subsidy for sheep. You have wool, the value of the stock again, drawings. In relation to expenditure, you have the purchases of sheep, general farm expenses, vet fees, and fertilizer. Okay, so what I want you to do is I want you to finish this question and just have a look and see if you either make a profit or a loss in relation to the cattle and milk and the sheep. Best of luck.